The I-Team has a letter from El Chapo in which he implies that U.S. prison officials are bullying him because he has escaped before.
You might think that the kingpins have it easy, that no matter what jail they're in, they get their way. That was not the case with the high-profile arrest of Joaquin Guzman, aka El Chapo. When he was extradited to the U.S., things went south real quick. In this exclusive video, we'll dive deep into the dark and notorious world of the Mexican narcotic trade, especially that of the king of the Sinaloa cartel, and find out how he was treated once the handcuffs caught hold of him. In January 2023, President Manuel López Obrador of Mexico received a desperate SOS call. It came from none other than the notorious drug lord El Chapo. This once powerful Mexican kingpin had experienced a dramatic fall from grace after his extradition in 2017, a consequence of the Sinaloa cartel's expansion into over 10 countries. Chapo's extensive involvement in the illicit narcotics trade had resulted in a life sentence plus an additional 30 years behind bars. Trapped in his dire circumstances, there seemed to be no escape for him, and the conditions of his prison cell were far from ideal. According to El Chapo's attorney, Jose Refugio Rodriguez, the notorious kingpin has experienced a dramatic decline in his quality of life. Rodriguez asserted that El Chapo was subjected to severe mistreatment while incarcerated at ADX Florence in the United States. He emphasized that Guzman, also known as El Chapo, endured relentless torment within the confines of this highly secure prison. Shockingly, reports suggest that he had not glimpsed the sun for the entire 6 years of his imprisonment. Such conditions serve as a stark reminder of the consequences awaiting those who engage in serious criminal activities. But all these activities had landed him in hell. That's what the cry for help was for. The SOS message was intended for the president to hear so that Guzman could walk out of the ADX Florence, Colorado, and fulfill the rest of his sentence in Mexico. El Chapo was said to be treated badly. He was allowed to go outside only 3 times a week. He was not allowed to meet many people or make as many phone calls as others were. No wonder he wanted to complete the rest of his sentence in Mexico. The US and Mexico have such an agreement where prisoners can go back to their home countries after being put in jail. El Chapo was banking on that agreement, and so was his lawyer, Jose Refugio Rodriguez. But would that same rule apply to the greatest kingpin of the Sinaloa cartel? It was confirmed by the Mexican embassy in Washington that El Chapo's lawyer Rodriguez sent an email to the Mexican authorities on January 10th. Moreover, it was claimed by several of El Chapo's lawyers that his conditions in the ADX Florence were a violation of human rights. It was also alleged that El Chapo was not getting proper medical care and was denied medical help. For a 64-year-old man, that might be a matter of life and death. El Chapo had his fair share of kingpin attitude as well. He complained that his prison cell in Manhattan did not have bottled water, and that tap water did not suit him. He also informed authorities that it was too cold in the prison cell. Given the extensive period he had spent in Mexico, it might seem effortless for El Chapo to secure a comfortable and opulent lifestyle within the prison cells there. With a multitude of resources seemingly at his disposal, he could potentially have an entire network of allies ready to assist him. And with enough determination, he might even engineer a swift escape, possibly before dinner. Such is the perception of the relative ease with which he could navigate a high-security prison in Mexico. The reality of ADX Prison. ADX Prison Colorado has had a long history of inmates who have spoken out against its treatment of all prisoners. It is a high-security prison where only most criminal masterminds are kept. El Chapo fit right in there with others who were charged with similar high-profile crimes at ADX. After leading a notorious narcotics empire, he was faced with the challenges of living with harsh and unruly conditions of ADX Colorado. The prison stands on 37 acres of land and looks like a fortress from above. No one has ever escaped from this prison, and you can see why. It's a heavily guarded and heavily patrolled prison where inmates are not allowed to mingle until they've earned the privilege of doing so. Their food is served to them on a tray by hand every day inside their cell, given timed showers, and everything in the room is made up of concrete. The prisoners at ADX are no ordinary ones. Terry L. Nichols and Robert P. Hansen are two infamous terrorists who are housed within the walls of ADX Correctional Facility. Moreover, the jail has also accommodated Ramzi Ahmed Youssef. Richard Lee McNair, Michael Swango, and Ted John Kaczynski are some of the names who have also walked the halls of ADX prison. A prison specially designed to deal with such levels of criminal activity put El Chapo right in his place. For the first 3 years, he was not allowed to make contact with another human being, and the loneliness got to him. He was made to sit and contemplate his life for hours in his cell. There was no way out, and no one was coming to save him. The prison is said to be especially unkind to its foreign prisoners with the 2012 case of Jose Martin Vega, where his family sued the United States District Court claiming that Vega was not given proper mental health treatment, and he took his own life. Later that year, 11 prisoners filed a lawsuit against the Federal Bureau of Prisons of the United States for mistreatment and neglect of mentally ill prisoners. So it can be deduced that El Chapo is in a tight spot, one his large houses and luxurious lifestyle had not prepared him for. Reasons to keep El Chapo locked up in the U.S. The U.S.'s decision not to allow El Chapo to be released from ADX stems from his previous time spent in Mexican prisons. He has escaped from not one but 2 high-security Mexican prisons. El Chapo's time at Puente Grande was a breeze. He ate what he liked and slept in a comfortable bed every night. It was on January 19, 2001, when he escaped hidden in a laundry cart because half the prison guards were on his payroll. Later, after another arrest, he was put in the Altiplano maximum security prison, and he made an illustrious Hollywood-style escape from that prison. He was assisted in digging a 1-mile-long tunnel from the prison to a property his wife had recently purchased. The tunnel was a work of art with ventilation and lighting. It was a marvel that it had not been detected by anyone at the prison. This shed a lot of light on the Mexican government and its ability to contain high-security prisoners. The president's response to the message. President Manuel Lopez said the government will consider Guzman's plea to serve the rest of his sentence in a Mexican prison. The government states, "We will review it. You always have to keep the door open when it comes to human rights violations." This might actually materialize because the US and Mexico already have a prisoner transfer agreement in place, and El Chapo might just get lucky this time. Given El Chapo's net worth, he would be able to afford a comfortable cell, some conjugal visits in a week, and any food he can dream of. His contacts would work here or there, and living in ADX Florence would only seem like a bad dream at that point. Experts argue that the governments of both countries are aware of El Chapo's power in Mexico, and he would never be allowed to leave US soil. It's also the high-profile nature of Guzman's case that will not allow him to be sent back to his home country so easily. The case of El Chapo's extradition was covered by the media heavily, and many dark truths about the workings of the Sinaloa cartel came out in public knowledge. He was no ordinary criminal. He was accused and pled guilty of smuggling several hundred tons of narcotics into many countries, including the United States of America. That kind of criminal activity cannot just be ignored. Back in 2017, this case was of huge importance, and to date, it stands as one of the most notorious trials of a cartel kingpin in American and Mexican history. Tell us in the comments below if you think El Chapo should be allowed to spend the rest of his days in Mexico. Also, subscribe to Crime Central for more thrilling updates on the topic.